Welcome back to the Socially Delightful podcast, everyone. I have my dear friend, in my opinion, authenticity queen, Laura Conley, on the podcast. She's the founder of the Yummy Mummy Method and has successfully helped hundreds of women lose weight for the last time. And she has been lovingly labeled the fun weight loss coach by her clients. She helps mamas who have been painfully struggling with diet drama to lose weight for the last time and free themselves from food chatter forever. Laura is the host of the Top 1% podcast, Lose Weight for the Last Time, has been featured on Be Well by Kelly. By Kelly? Okay, you can cut that
You
part,
could
Nick.
just, yeah, you could just not, you can not say that whole part if it's like easier for you to not.
There's so many things here though, Laura. That's so impressive. Like you've been on all these really big podcasts. Actually, Nick, you don't have to cut this. You can leave this whole damn thing in. So you've worked with brands like Uber, Nike, X, and the Mama Portal with Lori Bregman. That's huge.
You're
That's
so, oh my,
huge.
I'm just going to hang out with you, Jewel. You're making me feel really good about myself. Are you like a friendship expert or something?
Something like that. Oh my gosh, Laura, welcome.
Oh my God, Jewel, I love you. I love you so much. I'm so happy we're finally doing this.
Finally. Y'all, we had so many scheduling issues, but it's here and the energy is so good, which of course it would be. It's meant to happen like this. Meant to
I,
happen.
I agree.
So, Laura, I actually don't fully know your story on how you got started with this in the first place. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. So, I left corporate America 12 plus years ago to become a life coach. Everybody thought I was crazy. This was like before life coaching was like a thing, and was a life coach for many years. And then I had my daughter 7 years ago, and she was 6 weeks old. We had just gotten her out of the NICU because she had some major health problems that were really scary. I basically like lived with her in the NICU, and I caught myself beating myself up for not bouncing back into my pre-baby jeans fast enough. And I had a wake-up call. In that moment, I was like, "Oh, this stops here." Because if I'm beating myself up at 6 weeks postpartum and like picking apart every, belly roll or whatever, she's going to inherit this. And I
Mm,
was like, I have to solve this. I have to solve like this love-hate relationship with my body, all this food chatter, the diet drama, because she's going to get it. She's going to be sitting at the cafeteria table, like having calorie counting contests with her friends, like I was, if I don't heal it once and for all. And prior to that moment, I really had like accepted defeat. I was like, this is just going to be my thing. I'm just always going to be the girl that is either on like some silly green juice cleanse or, throwing in the towel and eating all the things. Like I just had accepted defeat. I really thought I couldn't figure it out. But I was like, okay, I figured out everything else. Like I can figure this out. Like I can do it for her. And so I went on this maniacal mission, went down all the different rabbit holes and used a lot of what was already in kind of like my coaching tool belt, along with a lot of nutrition and hunger hormone. Like that the like really thing that unleashed everything for me was hunger hormone health. I did not know that was a thing. And so I learned that, studied that, got a certification in that, and then paired it with mindset coaching and emotional intelligence and accountability and self-love. And so the Yummy Mummy method was really born because I used it on myself, right? And I'll never forget like standing talking to my husband and be like, well, I like really did this. Like, I can't believe I actually lost weight for the last time and healed my relationship with my body and food, because I did want to lose baby weight, like, and no shame in that. I just wanted to do it in a healthy way. I didn't want to do it by eating 800 calories every day. Um, and I remember kind of being freaked out that I had done it because I'm like, oh God, if I could do this, I could do anything. And so then it became my mission to free the moms and to help all of the moms do the same thing, because I know so many women struggle with this. And I was like,
mhm.
and so many women also accept defeat. They're just like, this, I'm a special unicorn, I'm broken, like I can't actually solve this. And it's just not true. Like if I could solve it, I can solve it for anyone else out there. And so then that became kind of my maniacal mission, because I feel like we're trapped, or so many of us are trapped. So that's where how the Yummy Mummy was born. I tested this methodology out on like all of my friends, and then I really just let go of all my regular kind of like regular life coaching clients and my vision and goals coaching clients and just went all in on the Yummy Mummy and all that. So yeah, that's kind of like the story. And so I
Yeah.
totally like give credit to my 6-week-old baby for inspiring that in me.
Yes, that's so beautiful. And I love that you touched on too, like there's no shame in that. Like there's no shame in wanting to lose weight, not wanting to lose weight.
Yeah.
Because I've had a client actually recently. So with social perfectionism, a huge way that that shows up is being perfectionistic about your appearance too, like when you're
Mhm.
going into places.
Mhm.
And I had a client recently literally say something along the lines of, I want to like have healthier habits to lose weight and I feel like I'm not being body positive about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, cuz I know you have some.
Yes, I have a lot of thoughts about that. So, I used to beat the crap out of myself for not bouncing back into my pre-baby jeans, but I also used to beat myself up for wanting to lose weight because I thought it meant I didn't love my body. And what I realized is that, oh, no, I actually can want to lose weight and it doesn't have to mean I don't love my body. In fact, it can mean I do love my body. And like I accept my body or whatever. But like for me, and I have been a yoga and meditation teacher for 12 years as well. Like when I left corporate, I became a life coach and yoga teacher. Anyways, I felt so much shame because I'm like, I'm supposed to be like this evolved human that's supposed to
Mm.
like love their bodies. And if I want to lose weight, it must mean I don't love my body. And it just wasn't true. It's like I think about friendships or marriage or like my relationships with my kids. Like for example, my relationship with my husband, like I love him. He's amazing. And I always want to work on my marriage. Like I always want to work on my health. I always want to work on my body, but not from like not good enoughness, but just from a like I love you and I want to take care of you. And so I felt so much shame for wanting to lose weight, but when I finally drowned out all the external noise, like there's so much coming at us, right? Like you have to be thin in order to be worthy, but like you have to love your body at this size, but like what if I actually genuinely don't? And so I just quieted all the noise and I was like, what do I want? Like what do I want? What is true for me? And I finally listened to that little whisper inside that was like, you don't feel good at X weight. And it's not from this like screwed up like wanting to be waif thin. It's from like I actually just energetically, physically, emotionally don't feel good. And the ironic thing about it is the extra weight that I would put on was never because I was fueling my body with nourishing foods. It was
Mm.
always because I was escaping myself and like using food to numb or buffer or whatever. So that gets into a whole nother conversation. But I think a lot of us growing up in the 2000s or in the 90s, like heroin chic was a
Yeah, what
thing.
the hell?
Yes. So, but
What?
then what happened was, which was totally effed. And then what happened is we swung all the way over to the other side. And I mean, I teach body positivity inside my program, but I think sometimes we misinterpret the messaging of like, I'm wrong and bad because I want to lose weight. And it's like, no,
Mhm.
you're allowed to want that if you want that. Like, and you're the only one that can decide that. And you also don't have to want that too. Like, right? It's like permission to do you.
Yeah. Yes. So, so good. And that's huge on authenticity, honestly. And I think that's why a lot of people like around you, like I know a lot of your friends, right, in your circle. And I've had the great privilege of hanging out with Laura a bunch. And I think everyone would agree that you just let your light shine, that you are just yourself.
Mhm.
I think truly, if we were to survey everyone and we were to be like, hey, describe Laura, they would say that. And I don't think it's a coincidence that behind your work and your messaging is like, no, give yourself permission to do what you want to do, to nourish yourself, to be there for yourself. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a coincidence that that's like
Mm.
a fundamental, a foundational piece of your work and what you do and how it helps you show up in the world. I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, what are your thoughts on that as I say that?
What, that I'm authentic or
Yeah.
what? Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I don't really have any thoughts on that, but like it's I was totally shutting myself before I listened to that little whisper of like this doesn't feel right. Like you don't feel good at this weight or this size and like again, yeah, no, you're totally right. I mean, I don't have a lot of thoughts other than like I am pretty authentic and I do
Mhm.
show up as myself. Of course, it's like a practice, but it comes very naturally to me now because I've done it for so long and
Yeah.
I haven't died yet. So I guess it's safe.
Yeah, but I think it really starts with like owning, like, okay, this is what I want, this is who I am, and like really unshaming
Mm,
that piece. When I do that with a client, and most of my clients have like some level of high functioning social anxiety, those are normally the women that I love to work with, is y'all have some level of high functioning social anxiety or overthinkers. And when we stop the shaming that's going on, everything else changes, truly. Like, it's almost like that's like the big thing we work on. Like, for the first half, I work with people for minimum of 6 months. For the first half of the package, or those 3 months, is just unshaming in your
mm,
head. And then after that, all of the things happen. I had one client who went from being nervous to have like eyes on her at a coffee shop to like singing in front of her entire company,
oh,
and I swear, like, that's like the results of that, but it has to start with that foundation. So I don't know, I just want everyone hearing this, especially if you're in a place right now where you're like, okay, I am not interested in like losing weight right now, or that's not me. But we all live in this culture where we're like shoved like perfectionistic standards. And
yeah,
so it's probably going to be even extra helpful for you if you are not in that place to hear this podcast through this lens, through with Laura, because you get to see the principles that we talk about so much on this podcast just show up in like another venue. So
yeah.
so good. One thing that you said there really quickly is that you realized that you were emotionally eating and buffering. And I know that one of the things that you believe is that most of us are emotional eaters. And is that a problem? And I was like, wow, I have never questioned that before.
Mm,
So you could tell me a little bit more on like
yeah.
your thought process on that?
Oh, yeah. I This unlocked so much for me because I never identified as an emotional eater. Like, because I wasn't the girl who had the most stressful day ever and then came home and ate like a carton of ice cream. Like, yes, I had stressful days. And yes, sometimes I did eat a lot of ice cream, but our culture really depicts like emotional eating as like, oh my God, you had the worst day ever. Your boss was an a-hole. And then you came home and ate Cheetos and a sleeve of Oreos and, on and on and on. And emotional eating, to me, the way I define it is that if hunger isn't the problem, food isn't the solution. So anytime you're eating and if you're not hungry, that's maybe, of course you get to make your own definitions. This is very subjective. But the way I define it is like, okay, if you're not hungry and you're eating, that's an emotional eat. But that's not bad or wrong. I totally see my husband do it from time to time, like, but it's not really a problem for him because he doesn't have a hangover of regret, or he doesn't feel like total ass from eating sugar the night before, right? And he doesn't do it all the time. But like I'll see he just like having fun on the couch or watching football or watching some stupid fly fishing YouTube video and like going to town on the salt and vinegar chips, and he's having the time of his life, but he doesn't have a net negative. So you just get to like put it through the filter of like, is this serving me? Is this a net negative, a net positive? Like my husband might say it's a net positive or a net neutral. And so I actually love emotional eating because it's like a check engine light. It's almost like an invitation. So if you notice at 9 p.m. or 2:30 p.m., you're like pacing in the pantry, or like the refrigerator light is staring back at you and you're just like looking for that random string cheese you're hoping is still in there, right? Like, and you're like, wait a second, I'm not actually hungry. Like, what am I actually looking for? You will create such a deeper relationship with yourself because you're probably looking for pleasure or comfort or stress relief, or I don't know, ask yourself and be willing to listen to that answer, because that invitation is, oh, how can I actually give myself that thing without the hangover, right? Without the big come down, because you do get a big dopamine hit from the Oreos. Like it actually does provide you with stress relief, right? But it's a huge high. And then there's a really big low on the other side of it. So it's like, okay, I'm not hungry, right? It's like hands on your heart. Like, if I'm not hungry, like, what am I searching for? And okay, you know what? For me, I need a little reward. I did have a hard day. How can I reward myself in a way that's like really supportive. And maybe that means like reading your favorite trashy novel or like watching Netflix. Like right now, I'm super into shrinking or like just going to bed early. Now, you're not going to get as big of a hit. Like the high is not going to be as high, but you're not going to be left with that big hangover or the regret or the crash, whatever you want to call it, on the other side. So it's just basically questions for you to ask yourself like, okay, if emotional eating isn't bad or wrong, and it is when I'm eating when I'm not hungry, like what's it about? And you mentioned this social perfectionism, which I absolutely love. That's also something fun to look at, right? Another invitation of like, oh, I'm noticing I'm eating the appetizers because I don't want other people to judge me or to be disappointed in me or what else. So we could go into that whole thing. And you just get to weigh it against like the pros and cons, the risk reward in your life. And you just get to decide for yourself, like, do I emotionally eat? Yes or no? It's not bad or wrong. Do I want to keep doing it? Is there a net negative? Is there a net positive? You just get to be like in inquiry, and I really believe like emotional eating is a lifelong practice too, or not emotionally eating is a lifelong practice. So yeah, I'll shut up now.
Yeah. No, so good. So good. Because I think what happens for a lot of people, I mean, even like the client, like I was coaching this morning, had something come up, and there's almost like this, oh, but I shouldn't have this need or this urge anyway, right? Like this shouldn't be there. It's a sign that
Mm,
I'm weak or I don't have enough willpower or not disciplined, whatever it is.
yeah,
And I love the way you are approaching it because it's like, hey, no, actually use this as a signal. And then, like, what do you really
yeah.
want? What do you really want? I I love that. I think that's so powerful. There's this thing called social prescribing, and that's just
Mm,
now being brought to the US. And y'all, very vulnerably, I have been hunting for an internship with this place for my school. So everybody cross their fingers or and don't, I was just gonna say message them, beat them up, bully them. Do not. I'm joking. I'm joking. I'm
oh no,
joking. But
message them. Don't definitely message them.
uh, I have been in contact with them, but I'm really trying to get an internship with them because I love what they're doing. But anyway, are what they are doing is the phrase of social prescribing. So what a social prescription is it's giving somebody a prescription that is in community, but it's about something that that person likes to do and is important to them. So in the UK, this program is really thriving, and they have like fishing social prescriptions, they have nature walk social prescriptions, art prescriptions, swimming. And so what people are doing to treat like depression, anxiety, chronic pain is that they are
Oh.
getting a prescription. It's the cost is included in their healthcare, and they get to go and like, let's say there's a nature walk program, and they get to like be in nature and like clean up in community with other people. And then oftentimes there will be like a mentor in that community. It kind of reminds
Mm,
me, I say it like it's like AA, no one else says that though, where like you get paired with like a sponsor
mm,
who mentors you in that. Anyway, I bring this up because one of their phrasings is, instead of asking like what's wrong with you and diagnosing a problem or what's the matter with you,
mm,
they ask what matters to you.
mm,
What matters to you? And then they base your social prescription around that. And I think what you described there is instead of, being like, okay, I shouldn't have this
mhm.
urge to emotionally eat, or I shouldn't be, if you catch yourself like halfway through, right? I
Yeah.
shouldn't be doing this. Instead of being like, oh, what's wrong with me? It's like, okay, what do I want? What
Yeah.
would be pleasureful and like supportive of me right now?
That's so good. Yeah, so it's not what's the matter with me, it's what matters to me. That is
Yeah.
so good. I'm, like, taking notes.
It's
So
so
good.
good. It's so good, right? So I also know, Laura, that you talk about when we use food for what it is most of the time, we eliminate so many unnecessary problems. I know that that's something that you believe, and I just want to know a little bit more about this. So, like, we're talking about using like pleasure and like asking yourself, like, okay, what do I want to nourish me? Can you tell me what you mean by when we use food for what it is?
Yeah, like, when I'm saying when we use food for what it is for,
Mhm.
that's just my opinion. And my opinion is that it's for fuel. That doesn't mean it's not going to be pleasurable. Like I just had lunch and it was like very pleasurable. Like I loved it, but I was hungry and it's going to be great fuel for me, like doing this interview with you and then going to get my kids from school and the inevitable like Papa Shot arcade basketball that we're gonna play for like an hour after that, right? So like I just want to like be clear that like when you eat for fuel, like when you use food for what it is for, which I believe is fuel, it will still be pleasurable. Um, but what's your question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know more about what that means to you because I know you talk about it from a sense of like, okay, we eliminate so many unnecessary problems. And I just want to see how that plays in with like also being like supportive of
Oh,
yourself.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So, like, for me, when I stopped eating for emotional reasons, I lost the excess weight. So the excess weight for me was causing me so many problems. Like, I didn't feel confident in my skin. I didn't feel energized. I didn't want to wake up in the morning. I mean, I woke up, but it was like with this big black cloud, right? Like, I wasn't excited to get dressed because I wasn't excited to get dressed. And I love getting dressed. Like, you know me. Like, I really believe that clothes are like an outward expression of our inner world. And I do feel like it's an art form. So I was robbing myself because I didn't feel good on my skin of that whole outward expression. Then I would go downstairs. Then I would probably like I don't know, snack on some freaking pastries that were like leftover. Then I would start beating myself up because I just ate. I wasn't even actually hungry. I'm not a big breakfast person, never have been, but I ate it because it was good. And then I have a little sugar hangover and I carry it to work. And I'm just like, I'm basically just dragging all day. And so when I stopped eating for emotional reasons, I lost that excess weight. I now there's other components that were going into this as well, but I now wake up most days like I mean, you again, you know me and this is not not true. Like, I pretty much bounce out of bed. I'm very excited to get dressed. I'm so excited to greet my family. I like have a lot of zest for the day. I'm eager to hop on a call with you and connect. I feel good in my body, and our bodies, like you guys obviously know, like our bodies are our home. Like, if we don't feel good in them, it affects every single other area. So, like, it bled into all other areas of my life, my work, my relationships, literally everything. And so that's kind of what I mean. Like when I stopped eating emotionally, I was able to weigh what I wanted to weigh. When I just eat when I'm hungry and stop when I'm sated, I just really feel good in my body and that's literally everything. Because if you don't
Mhm.
feel good in your body, it's hard to connect with other people. It's hard to want to write that arduous email. It's hard to like be engaged on a pod. It's like impossible to be authentic if you don't feel good in your body. So I could go on and on and on, but
Yeah.
it's all about how you feel in your body. And for me, using food for what I believe it's not for just did it. It just constantly made me feel not myself. And I feel like I always say, like, my goal here is to free the moms. And really, what freedom is about, like you touched on it a couple of times, really, what freedom is about for me is like the ability to be your authentic self, your ability to be your true self in any setting. And that was really hard for me to do with all the food chatter, food noise, the extra food on my body, the extra fat on my body, I'll say it, like that just didn't feel like me. So I don't know if
Yeah.
that answers your question.
It does. It does. And I think it provides such a comprehensive view of everything because if knowing like okay, when you said you stopped emotionally eating and knowing how you got there of like okay, this isn't wrong and there's something that I actually want to be like pleasurable
Yeah.
and supportive of myself.
And that
Um
that I think you were getting at too, which is so I had to like really dial up the pleasure in my life because that's mainly what I was doing. I was eating like late at night for pleasure or because I was like a little bit restless or a little bit bored. And so it was like, okay, how can I make my life like really fun? Like, how can I give myself pleasure throughout the day and throughout the week so that I'm not like just hanging out in the pantry or like searching for something the pantry can't actually give me anyways, right? So it's like planning walks with my friends. It's wine nights with my friends. It's chatting with my husband and putting my kids on screens. I mean, clearly I'm an extrovert because everything everything I'm talking about is like talking to other people. But I also like introverted things too. Like again, this kind of sounds basic B, but like I love a good massage. So I schedule those in. I love moving my body, not for weight loss purposes, but I love yoga. I love pickleball. I love dance. So like I'm like very strategic because I know that if I don't fill my pleasure cup up, it will fill itself up in the pantry at 9 p.m. So you have to be like so strategic. Yeah. Jewel liked that if you guys are watching this.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it
Oh
will
my
like a
gosh.
dope like your brain is a dopamine seeking missile. Like it will find the dopamine. So you better be strategic about giving it healthy dopamine, or what I call inside my program, like delicious dopamine versus like detrimental dopamine, right? Detrimental dopamine for me was like my kid's goldfish. Delicious dopamine is like a sunshine walk with my neighborhood bestie.
Mm. Detrimental versus delicious dopamine. And what you said, yeah, my jaw literally fell to the floor. What you said, oh, can you say it one more time? So, if we don't fill our pleasure cup up, it will
Yeah.
fill it. Yeah.
It'll fill itself up. It will find a way.
Wow.
It will like march your body. That brain of yours will march your body into the pantry and will find something, or
Mm.
it will swipe on your phone into the DoorDash app and ice cream will be there. Like if you don't be intentional or become intentional about getting that dopamine in ways that are really supportive, like your brain will find it. And that's why so many of us are addicted to these like cheap hits, right? Like the
Mhm.
goldfish, the ice cream, the Oreos, like they're cheap. They're cheap. The other things take a little bit more effort. They do. And like women, as women, we have all the I'm going to call them what they are. We have all the excuses in the world because we've been programmed to not take care of ourselves. So, like, taking care of yourself is laced with so much guilt, but it's not your guilt, it's just culture's guilt, right? And so, that's a lot of what I teach my clients to do is like to hand the guilt back to our
Mhm.
culture, literally, and be like, okay, I'm not a bad mom because I'm getting my kid a babysitter so I can go to yoga, or I'm not a bad employee because I'm taking an entire hour for my lunch that, by the way, is included in my contract or whatever, you know? And you will actually feel the guilt the first 7 times you do it. But then you'll notice that you're not in the pantry because you're actually taking real care of yourself. I mean, this goes back to that like self care conversation we are talking about a little bit before we hit record. So, yeah. So, your brain will find the dopamine, so be strategic about it or be intentional about it. And you'll feel
Wow.
so much better. Like you'll feel so and that's what I was kind of talking about, like me healing the emotional eating just it just makes me feel so much better on a daily basis. I'm just so lit up because I lead with how can I get a walk in? How can I get a yoga in? How can I get a pickleball in? How can I make it so that we're playing Uno? Like I love games, obviously. I mean, but I love like playing games with my kids, right? So
Mhm.
like I'm being really intentional about my day so that it's like when we come home at night, it's like we're not doing their weird art and craft project. I mean, that's fine if my kids want to do that, right? On their own. But like I'm kind of manipulating the evening so that we're doing things we all enjoy. You know what I mean?
Mm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. And what you said too about like our culture has programmed us to
Mhm.
make us feel guilty about taking care of ourselves is so
Mhm.
massive. And what
Mhm.
you said too, I even love that we see it in that example of I like the way you phrased it, but like you were ensuring in your evenings that y'all are doing something that everybody wants to
Yeah.
enjoy rather than that like, oh, I need to sacrifice
Mhm.
like my pleasure and like do whatever
Yeah.
my kids wants to do. My kids wants to do. My kid, why can't my kids want to do? There we go. Uh and that's so interesting because then our friendships, like our quality of our relationships, there was a study that came out. It was the longest study on happiness in history. It was an 80 year. You saw this, and so the number one predictor of our overall well-being was the quality of our relationships, right? And we have seen just in the last, like, I think 5 years, don't quote me on exactly that, but what you can't quote me on is that we used to spend on average
Mm,
6 hours a week with our friends, and then it dropped to 2 hours a week. 2 hours a week for
mhm.
the most important thing,
Yeah.
you know? And a huge part of that is a lot of parents have been like really focused on their kids and kids activities, whereas
Mm,
when I was growing up, I was used to being shuffled around wherever my
yeah.
parents wanted to go,
Yeah.
right? I was used to being at, my parents' house, and even if the kids were way older than me or younger than me, doesn't
Oh,
matter,
well.
kiddo.
Yeah.
Go in the living room
Yeah.
because the adults are hanging out, like we're getting our cups filled up.
Yeah.
And parents, and that's another statistic as well, parents are spending less time with their kids and their friends, and they're spending more time with just their kids. And so I
Mm,
just really appreciate you highlighting that, because I think, like, imagine, like, just in one night, y'all, of Laura being like, you know what, kiddos,
mm,
we're gonna play a game that everybody wants to play,
yeah.
that everybody would have fun with.
Yeah.
Imagine how differently and like more recharged and filled up you would be to respond to your kids if one of them has a meltdown, to show up for the other areas of your life
Mhm.
that you want to. Like,
No, it's like
imagine.
it's magic. It's like it's magic and it's kind of ironic because what I notice is like now I genuinely want to hang out with them, right? Because my
Mm,
cup is filled. Like I don't think I'm hanging out with my kids more or less than the mom who kind of feels like she's doing it out of obligation or guilt, right? We're probably doing it the same amount or maybe she's doing it more, but she doesn't feel good because her cup's not full. Like I'll give you the perfect example. I mean, you hit the nail on the head too, but like my husband's overseas right now. We have a new puppy. My kids are little, right? I obviously have a business. So like yesterday, and I love to move my body, not for weight loss purposes. I actually think it's like the worst way to lose weight, but like I just feel so good when I move my body. So yesterday I'm like, how am I going to move my body and take care of this new puppy and take care of these like kids? I'm like, okay, kids, we're going to the park and I'm going to lap the park. And so I just wore my weighted vest, my ridiculous huge visor, and I just did laps. And my kids were like, "Can you push me on the swing?" And I was like, "I'm not going to push you on the swing. I love you. Go play. I'm going to do laps. I want to get my workout in." And then tonight they're like, "Can we go to Texas Roadhouse?" You guys, oh my God, barf. Like I'm like I cannot. The joke in my family is that when I go out of town, my kids get to go to Texas Roadhouse. But I have the capacity to say yes because my cup is full. Like I'm like, I actually will take you to Texas Roadhouse and I'm not going to eat there. But my point is I have the capacity to sit at Texas Roadhouse with you guys because I've like exercised and moved my body. I don't know if that's like the
mm,
perfect example, but it's like I just notice more and more that when my cup is full, I'm actually looking for ways to hang out with my kids versus doing it out of obligation. And I think as moms, we're just like, God, we're so victim to it. We're doing everything out of guilt, everything out of obligation. And it's not fun. Like, the worst thing is to feel like you don't want to do it, but you have to, you know? And there is another way. There really is. So yeah, I could go on and on, but I
yeah.
do think we should take a page out of your parents' book and sorry, we're hanging out with these kids tonight and they're 3 years older and you guys will figure it out. And it's good for them to not be
Hmm.
so coddled, right? So,
It's so good. I really think, for me personally, it expanded, like, I think one thing, if anybody ever met me my entire, like, throughout any point in my life, one thing they'd be able to say about me is that I'm very empathetic. And I honestly think that
mm,
was a huge reason why, is because I was around a bunch of kids that were like either way older than me,
yeah.
again, or way younger than me, or in completely different situations. And I think, like, I even grew up, that's a whole other thing. But yeah, I really think it was very healthy for my development. So as we're kind of talking about this too, this really relates to like people pleasing, right? Like, this is like
Yes.
an example of somebody people pleasing their kids, if you will.
Yes.
So I would love to know too how that shows up with food. Like I forgot how you phrased it, but you've said it like emotional, like
No,
eating,
like the people pleasing eating.
people pleasing
Yeah.
eating.
It's
Yes.
so common and it's very tied to social perfectionism. I mean, at least the way that I'm understanding it. So,
Mhm.
your mother-in-law brings over your favorite cake, except for it's not your favorite cake. And she's like, I baked it just for you. I even made it gluten-free because I know you're gluten-free now. Right. And so then you feel obligated to eat it. So then you eat it, but you genuinely don't want to eat it. But you do because you don't want to disappoint her, or you're out with your girlfriends, or you're out on a double date and everybody orders appetizers, but you're not really that excited about the appetizers. And so you don't want to have them, but you have them because you're worried that you're going to look like a weirdo, or you're worried that they're going to judge you, or you're worried that, oh my God, is she on a diet? Like, oh, like why is she on a diet? Right? All the judgment. Like, a lot of my clients will say too, like, oh God, what is she trying this time? Like, she's on something new now, right? And it's like, if you genuinely want the cake or the appetizers, like, great, have them. But what I find is that we're all carrying around 15 pounds of people pleasing pounds because we're eating this food that we don't even want to eat. We're just too afraid to say no. And it's like, you have to be willing to disappoint other people. Side note, most people won't give an F. Like, they won't care, right? Like, most people don't actually care. But there is that one food pusher, usually your mother-in-law, or if you're not married, like, there's always some food pusher. And it's like, okay, be willing to disappoint somebody else in order, like, I kind of like do this like fun little saying, in order to like appoint your future self. Or you could say, like, I'm willing to disappoint this person so that I don't disappoint myself, right? Like, it's like
Mhm.
we're abandoning ourselves for what, right? For what?
Yeah.
And I'm like, even if that person does judge you because you don't have the appetizer, is that really someone you want in your life? And maybe the answer is yes, that's okay too. But like, also, it's a freaking bacon wrap date. Like, get over it, you know? So, yeah, I
Yeah.
think a lot of people, and this is where this work is so cool because, like, inside my program, it's not just about weight loss, obviously, because we're healing at the root. So it's like, okay, if I can learn to stop people pleasing around the bacon wrap date, like, what else? Maybe I'm able to say no to making 114 muffins for the like PTA. Maybe I can say no to that project at work. Maybe I can say no to, and then have space for my life, right? And
Yeah.
like love your life. I mean, yeah. So,
Yeah, no, absolutely. And you're absolutely right that it really relates to social perfectionism. Social perfectionism teaches us that we are overly responsible for other people's feelings, even like a mood in a conversation. One thing that comes up for a lot of my clients is like if somebody's even like slightly disengaged or maybe they're tired, they're like, "Oh, it's my fault because I'm not interesting enough." Like it's
yes.
my fault, right? And it really does relate to that, and I think too we could even use what we talked about earlier with being, like, more supportive of, like, "Hey, mother-in-law, I actually, like, don't want to eat this, but I can tell, like, you were really trying to take care of me in some kind of way," right? Like,
Yes.
you were trying to be there for me in some
Mm,
kind of way. You know, this other thing would be way more like aligned and
mm,
would make me feel so loved. Like we can also use what we talk about a lot on this podcast, like connective communication to
mm,
navigate these situations. And like you said, most of the time people aren't going to care. Sometimes people are going to be upset. We have to release the responsibility
mm.
for other people's emotions. And I think we can also, because a lot of times people are like, okay, I don't want to people please, but I also don't want to be an asshole, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like there is a
Fair.
middle ground.
Yeah,
There is a
fair.
middle
Yeah.
ground. And use like again, using through connective communication of like, okay, I can tell you were trying to do this for me. Thank you so
Mm,
much.
so good.
Yeah. Laura, I could talk to you probably for 1,000 more
I
years.
know.
This was so good. Y'all, we didn't even talk about hunger hormones today, so you're going to have to run over to Lose Weight for the Last Time podcast to immediately go check that out and learn more about that and Laura's work. Laura, is there anything else that you want to say or anywhere in particular you want people to run to find you? We're going to have
Yeah.
all of this in the show
Yeah.
notes.
I love that you brought up the hunger hormones because I'm doing a class. You can go to lauraconley.com/class. And you can check that out. So I'm going to teach you guys how to weigh what you want without doing stuff you hate. There's a swear word in there. I don't know if we can swear on this podcast. I probably did swear on the podcast already.
Oh,
But
I
anyways.
did.
Anyway, so go to lauraconley.com/class and you can sign yourself up for that free class where I teach you all of the things. Like Jewel said, I have a podcast called Lose Weight for the Last Time with Laura Conley, and you can check me out on the socials. That's Laura Conley Coaching on Instagram. And if you want to go down the rabbit hole or you're like interested in working together, lauraconley.com is my website. And my name is LauraConley. So yeah, that's pretty much all the things.
Beautiful. And we will have that down below for y'all because, we're all about making things easy. Laura, thank you so much.
Oh my God,
Thank
you're
you
the
so, so
best, Jewel.
much.
You're the
And
best. It was so fun. Thank you. You're
so
so fun.
fun.
Yeah.
It's so, so fun. And thank you all for hanging out with us today, and I'll see you next time.